What if I told you that most of your thoughts aren't even your own, that every decision you make, every belief you hold, every reaction you have, has been carefully engineered by forces you don't even see? Sounds like a conspiracy, right? But it's not. It's just how the world really works. From the moment you were born, you've been conditioned. Your mind has been shaped by schools, media, social norms, and hidden psychological triggers designed to keep you in line. To make you obey. To make you think you're choosing. When, in reality, you're just following. Ever wonder why the news is always negative? Why social media is designed to make you angry? Why companies push trends that make you feel incomplete without their products? It's not an accident. It's a system. And if you don't wake up to it, you'll spend your entire life being played, never realizing that you were never truly thinking for yourself. But today, that changes. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you how to take back control of your mind, how to see the invisible strings pulling your thoughts, how to think sharper, faster, and smarter than the masses. But be warned. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you understand how the system works, you'll never fall for its tricks again. And that kind of power that makes you dangerous. So if you're ready to stop being manipulated, if you're ready to become a person who questions, challenges, and leads, then stick around. Because what you're about to learn might just change the way you see everything. Chapter 1, The Mind Trap You Don't Even Know You're In. Imagine walking into a courtroom where your own brain is on trial. The prosecution, your biases, the defense, your ego, and the judge. Well, that's supposed to be you. But let's be real. You might be the least qualified person to make an objective decision about yourself. Sounds dramatic? It should. Because every single day, you're unknowingly making decisions based on assumptions, emotions, and beliefs that might not even be yours. Your mind is a master illusionist. It convinces you that what you think is true, simply because you think it. That's why arguments on social media escalate so fast. Everyone is so convinced they're right. They never stop to ask, what if I'm wrong? That's the first major crack in the foundation of weak thinking, the inability to question yourself. The moment you start asking that question, you start thinking critically. And if you don't, well, then you're trapped in a cycle of self-deception, constantly reinforcing the same beliefs without ever knowing if they're actually true. Let's make this personal. Ever had a gut feeling that someone was lying, only to find out later they were telling the truth, or assume a person was rude because they didn't text back, only to realize they had a family emergency? That's your brain filling in the blanks with assumptions, not facts. And the scariest part, you do this all the time. The good news: you can train your brain to stop falling for its own tricks. The real question is, do you want to? Because once you start questioning, you can never go back to blissful ignorance. And trust me, ignorance is bliss. But clarity is power. Chapter 2. Your brain is lazy. If you're hoping your brain is this highly sophisticated, always logical supercomputer, I have bad news. Your brain is lazy. And that laziness, it's wrecking your decision-making skills. Here's the deal. Your brain doesn't want to think hard. It burns calories every time it does. That's why it looks for shortcuts, why it jumps to conclusions, why it accepts the first explanation that feels right, instead of digging deeper. It's why you might believe a well-spoken liar over a stuttering genius. It's also why you default to thinking the way you've always thought, because changing your mind is exhausting. But here's where it gets worse. Your brain isn't just lazy. It's confident. It assumes it knows more than it does. That's why people argue passionately about topics they barely understand. Ever notice how everyone suddenly becomes an expert on finance when the stock market crashes, or a political analyst during elections? That's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, when people with the least knowledge overestimate their expertise. And if you think you're immune, well, that's probably the effect in action. So how do you fight a lazy, overconfident brain? Simple. You force it to work harder. The best way to do that: ask better questions. Next time someone gives you an argument that sounds convincing, ask, what evidence do I have that this is actually true? What's the counter-argument? Am I believing this because it's comfortable, or because it's accurate? Most people don't do this. Most people would rather be certain than correct. The ones who can push past that, they don't just think better, they win at life. Chapter 3. Why most people are easy to manipulate. Let's get straight to the point. Most people are ridiculously easy to manipulate. And if you think you're not, that makes you more susceptible, not less. Think about this. Have you ever watched a commercial and suddenly craved a burger, even though you weren't hungry? That's manipulation. Have you ever read a headline and immediately formed an opinion without reading the article? That's manipulation. Have you ever felt like someone was the one just because they made eye contact and smiled at you? Guess what? Manipulation. Now, before you freak out and start thinking you're a mind-controlled zombie, let's clarify something. Manipulation isn't always bad. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's just persuasion. The real danger isn't that people influence you. It's that you don't realize when it's happening. Here's how it works. Your brain is wired for cognitive ease. It prefers information that's simple, familiar, and emotionally charged. That's why headlines use fear. It's why politicians repeat slogans until they sound like absolute truth. It's why confidence often beats competence. The trick to resisting manipulation: learn to recognize when someone is playing with your emotions. Next time you feel a strong emotional reaction, anger, fear, excitement, pause. Ask yourself, who benefits from me feeling this way? What evidence do I actually have? Would I believe this if it were presented differently? Because here's the thing. Most people don't ask these questions. They just react. And the ones who react the fastest, they're the easiest to control. The ones who think before they react, they become dangerous because they can't be played. And if you think that's powerful, wait until you learn how to use this knowledge against those who try to manipulate you. That's what we'll cover next. Chapter 4. The hidden war between emotion and logic. Ever had a moment where you knew you shouldn't do something but did it anyway? You told yourself you'd stay calm in an argument, but the second they rolled their eyes, it was game over. You swore you wouldn't buy anything unnecessary, but somehow that limited time sale was too good to pass up. That's because despite what we like to believe, logic doesn't run the show. Emotion does. And if you don't understand how emotions hijack your thinking, you're not making rational decisions. You're just making emotional ones that feel logical. Here's how it works. Your brain processes emotions faster than logic. That's why fear makes you jump before you've even identified what scared you. It's why anger makes you snap before you've thought through what you're about to say. Your logical brain is playing catch-up, trying to justify what your emotions already decided. And here's the worst part. Your emotions aren't always based on reality. They're influenced by past experiences, subconscious biases, and even things as random as whether you got enough sleep. That means if you don't take a second to question them, you could be making life-altering decisions based on nothing but a mood swing. So, how do you stop your emotions from running your life? Simple. Create distance between feeling and action. When you feel a strong emotion, pause, ask yourself, is this emotion based on facts or just my reaction? The more you question, the less control your emotions have over you. And once you master that, you become the kind of person who thinks before acting while everyone else is just reacting. Chapter 5. The echo chamber that's controlling you. Ever notice how your social media feed seems to agree with you? How does every post, every article, every comment section seems to confirm what you already believe? That's not a coincidence. That's an echo chamber. And if you're not careful, it can trap you in a world where you only ever see one side of the truth. Here's how it happens. Your brain loves agreement. It feels good to be right. That's why people gravitate toward news sources that match their beliefs. It's why your algorithm feeds you content that aligns with your opinions. It's why debates online rarely change minds. Because most people aren't listening, they're just waiting for their turn to talk. But here's the danger. If you never expose yourself to opposing ideas, your thinking becomes weaker, not stronger. You start mistaking repetition for truth. You become more confident, but less informed. And that makes you easy to manipulate. The solution: break your own echo chamber. Read sources that challenge your beliefs. Follow people you disagree with. Force yourself to consider the other side, not to change your mind, but to sharpen it. Because the strongest thinkers aren't the ones who cling to their ideas. They're the ones who test them constantly. Chapter 6, The Power of Asking the Right Questions. Imagine you're in a detective movie interrogating a suspect. You don't just ask, "Did you do it?" because obviously, they'll say no. You dig deeper. You ask questions that reveal what they're trying to hide. That's how critical